What is up, boxing fans around the world, FightHype family? We are here with a little bit of a live, not a Z cap, I guess a Z view, instead of preview, since my last name is Zittel. See what we did there. But a little preview today of Arthur Beterbiev defending the unified light heavyweight titles against Anthony Yarde. I want to get into my final prediction there. And Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul has been announced. So Jake Paul, technically taking on the first professional boxer of his career. Obviously, Anderson Silva beat a professional boxer in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., so you could argue that Anderson Silva, even at 47 years old, might have been a tougher challenge than Tommy Fury will be. We'll discuss that. And then I want to just close on all of that as we get ready. And then later on today, not during this live, but later on today, I want to have my man Hasim Rahman Jr. join me for a live to discuss Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, who he thinks wins that fight. Obviously, he's very familiar with both, coming up in the traditional amateur systems, USA boxing, and then having fights as a pro. But he's also very familiar with Jake Paul, who we all know he almost fought, and very familiar with the YouTuber influencer boxing scene. He went overseas to the UK and got familiar with all of them. So curious to see how Rock picks that fight. I know there's that animus between him and Jake, but I don't think that'll affect the way he picks a fight for us later. But let's jump right in. I'm just waiting for some people to hop in the chat and we'll get started here. Again, and we're a hardcore boxing channel, so I don't expect a million people to line up to hear anything about the Jake Paul Tommy Fury fight, but we do got Arthur Beterbiev Arthur Beterbiev and Anthony Yarde to discuss. So, but let's get into it. I'll wait another minute or two. What's up, J7? Says Team Jake with the USA flag. I hear you. Little USA versus United Kingdom. Maybe a little bit of that going on. But actually, and again, if you don't love the Jake Paul experience, the Jake Paul experiment in boxing, that card announced a very good co-main event. As the co-main event, Badou Jack will be taking on Ilunga Makabu for the WBC Cruiserweight title. Badou Jack has a chance to solidify a really steady and really good career if he could win that fight. He won the WBA, interim regular belt at 175. He was the legit WBC champ at 168. If he could beat Makabu at Cruiserweight, he's a better fighter than Makabu. It's just a question of, at about 40 years old and about 30 pounds above his original weight class, can he beat a guy that much physically bigger? But I don't doubt that Badou Jack has better skills than Makabu. So, even if you're not into the Jake Paul experiment, there's a good fight that day between Badou Jack and Makabu for the WBC title on the line. Rostam S says, hello, what's up, Rostam? Chuck PC Vills Boxing, what up, Sean? What up, Chuck? Thank you for joining us, brother. About to get it going in just a minute here. So let's get it going. We'll save Beterbiev and Yarde for last. We'll give them that respect of going on last. So let's take a look. Well, that's the odds for Beterbiev and Yarde, but Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. Tommy Fury and Jake Paul to try again is bout set for February 26th in Riyadh, out there in Dubai, Abu Dhabi. I gotta forgive me which one, but Saudi Arabia actually. Sounding like an ignorant American there a little bit, but it is what it is. So first off on that, the fact that the fight will happen in Saudi Arabia, there is some business to discuss there. So Tommy Fury, along with brother Tyson Fury, has been linked with Daniel Kinahan. It's believed that that's part of why he couldn't come overseas. Jake Paul said, you didn't find your visa, you didn't even try to go to the department to get your visa to be allowed to come overseas. There was reports and speculation that the Kinahan relationship made it hard for him to come to America. Jake says he never shows up to go through the process, so he could eventually come to America. So ultimately, Jake Paul goes from having the fight scheduled twice on Showtime in America to having to go overseas to Saudi Arabia, and now the fight appears like it'll be on ESPN Plus. Interesting change of events there, as Jake, his rematch with Tyron Woodley did a reported 65,000 buys on pay-per-view, and that was a lesser number than people were probably expecting on both Jake's side and Showtime's side. So that relationship turned out to apparently not be as profitable. We never, I think, got I believe the Anderson Sylve fight did over 200,000. I'd have to, you know what? While I got you guys, we can go ahead and check that out. Anderson Sylve, Jake Paul pay-per-view buys. Well, Bad Left Hook reporting it did between 200,000 and 300,000. There were some headlines about Jake feeling that Jake Paul isn't happy with the pay-per-view buys for his fight with Anderson Sylve. So I guess it makes sense that that was his final fight with Showtime. You know, his brother did huge numbers with Logan Paul on Showtime. I think they're the last fight in a boxing ring, whether you consider it, you know, legit or whatever, to do over 1 million buys. So ultimate, and so here's what's interesting about the fight taking place in Saudi Arabia. That neck of the woods, you know, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, that's Daniel Kinahan. That is still where he's, you know, reported. He's got Russian guards. That's still where he's reported to be hanging out at. And so you got to raise your eyebrow a little bit. Usyk and Fury is being talked about as headed over to the Middle East rather than the United Kingdom. All these fights are leaving the United States and the United Kingdom to the area where, you know, this power broker is supposed to be out of the business because severed ties with Probellum, MTK's discontinued. United States Treasury Department has them, but there's a little smoke there, if you ask me, because so many of these fights are still headed to where this behind the scenes power broker is apparently still at large. You know, so outside of the squared circle, that's something a little interesting to keep an eye on as we go forward. So ultimately, Tommy doesn't make it over here, and Jake has to go over there. And, you know, regardless of where a fight's held, you got to get in the ring, and it's held between the two fighters. But that, you know, it might help Tommy's chances a little bit. I don't think that Tommy is the favorite in this fight, however, and I don't think the odds makers see that either. Let's take a look at the early odds. I believe Jake is a slight favorite. So yes. Lists Tommy Fury as a minus 200 favorite. Really? I am surprised. Okay. So, it appears that, well, my first reading that Fury is a slight favorite, but that's not originally what I read. Let's take another look and make sure that we can get some other odds here. Let's see. Yeah, see, so now this site has Jake Paul minus 200. And I've heard more that Paul is the favorite in this fight from the early lines opening up. And, you know, to sink our teeth into that, so Tommy Fury has faster hands than Jake Paul. He has faster feet than Jake Paul. Very important. He has a good jab. But he never commits to his right hand. And he has fought awful opposition. We can talk about the opposition Jake Paul has fought. But Tommy Fury's combined opponents heading into his last fight was something like 16 wins and 275 losses. Even with his last opponent being 10-1, who did not come to fight, who hardly threw a punch at Tommy. Even with his 10-1 record, that only elevates it to 26 wins and 726 losses, something absurd like that, or 226 losses. You know what? While we're at it, we could box rec it again, because the level of opposition has been even worse than what Jake Paul has taken on. So yeah, you add up the records: 10-102, 0-26. That gets us to 10-128. You're going to see some good mental math here. 10-128, 12-150, 12-154, 12-165, 12-174, 14-174, 14-175. And 24-176. So that is the combined records of Jake Paul's level of, Tommy Fury's level of opposition. Is what was that? Read it to me again, chat. It was awful. And, you know, Sylve, in beating Chavez Jr., who is reputed to have, you know, drug problems, the guy can't go past 2 or 3 rounds. He's got about a round and a half in him, and then he just gives out and mentally wants to quit and get out of the ring. But still, Julio Cesar Chavez was a WBC world champion, and Anderson Sylve stopping him is by far the most impressive thing any opponent on either one of their records has done. And so Tommy Fury has faster hands than Jake. He's got a better jab than Jake Paul. He's got better feet than Jake Paul. But one thing Jake has on him is he sits down on his punches more. He gets his feet and his legs underneath his shot. He commits. He has more tenacity in that ring than Tommy Fury. Go watch Tommy Fury's last fight. He was afraid to engage. He was just doing enough to touch the guy on the outside and wary of whatever was coming back. He never even committed to a right hand. Jake Paul will commit to that right hand, and eventually, when two fighters exchange, when they time each other up and they punch at the same time, the guy who's committed against the guy who's half-hearted, the guy who's half-hearted is going to get hurt in that exchange. That's how you get hurt in exchanges sometimes, is not fully committing to the shot, being halfway in, halfway out, and the other guy is really stepping in and sitting down and putting it on there. And I see that being an advantage for Jake. Now, both of these guys keep their left hands dangerously low. And I actually think, again, Tommy Fury with his better feet, he actually has better reflexes on the defensive side too. But Jake Paul keeps his feet underneath him and is actually a little more fundamentally sound in some ways than Tommy Fury. But Jake Paul too will lunge in behind that jab to the body, trying to change your eyes with it, with a jab to the body, come over the top with the right hand. That's stuff that, experienced pros can figure out, but I don't know if Tommy Fury will figure it out. Tommy Fury, I've never seen him hit in a professional fight. Jake Paul ate some uppercuts against Anderson Sylve. He ate a good right hand against Tyron Woodley in the first fight, and those are MMA guys, but they cracked him with some good shots. Even in that first little amateur fight with headgear he had on overseas, he got his nose busted in the first round and fought through it. So he's shown us, taken into context the level he's at, but he's shown us some dog and more tenacity than Tommy Fury has thus far. I think Tommy Fury could win that fight behind his jab. He could box, but at some point he's going to have to get cracked and he's going to have to show some dog. And Jake Paul, to his credit, has been cracked a few times and has shown some dog. And he also has shown a bit of a gas tank. He's gone 8 rounds. Tommy Fury's last fight was 6 rounds with only 2-minute rounds, and he hardly put his foot on the gas. Jake Paul showed enough to still get a knockdown with the right hand in the 8th round against Anderson Sylve. So I got to give the edge to Jake Paul a little bit, but Fury's chances go up a little bit having the fight, overseas rather than over here. Politics sometimes can affect that kind of thing. So we'll see. But one thing I want to touch about with Jake Paul, chat. Excuse me. Let me read a few comments and then I want to touch on something about Tommy Fury here. I'm sure Michael Manning says, I am sure that the crazier fight on this card is Badou Jack versus Ilunga Makabu, who has been missing from a mainstream fight in years. Yeah, Badou Jack. I think I got to watch tape, so this isn't a final pick, but I feel like Badou's probably going to get the job done, man. Badou's a dog. Makabu's no spring chicken. It's not like he's got some great youth advantage over Badou Jack. He's going to be the bigger man. But I heard a lot of people felt Makabu lost his last fight and was fortunate to still have the belt. Badou Jack is a bruiser. He's a workman-like fighter, digs to the body. When he's at his best, he's very good on the front foot at staying consistent. He's a consistent fighter. And, Badou Jack shows up at his best. I think he could be walking out of that building with, a world title in the 3rd division. And that it may not be a Hall of Fame career, but that would solidify a really, really solid professional career for Badou Jack. So, Michael Manning, I'm with you. I'm looking forward to that fight, the Badou Jack fight. As a purist, looking forward to it probably more than Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. But, Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, I'll be watching that as well. Jake owns boxing, says Elusive Storm. It might be an overstatement, Elusive. The numbers, the pay-per-view numbers the last couple fights didn't translate. He ain't doing Canelo numbers or he's not doing Canelo Alvarez numbers. He's not doing Tyson Fury in the United Kingdom numbers. So he is a draw. No one would deny that. He's a draw, but turns out maybe not quite as big a draw as some people thought, because anytime you're going overseas, it's not what A-sides do, right? That's not what true superstars have to do. Canelo might go overseas to fight John Ryder, but it's not because he was leveraged to have to do that. And I give Jake credit, right? He's showing some moxie by taking the trip overseas, going to a new network. He's taken some chance in doing that, and I give him some props for that. He really wanted this Tommy Fury fight. He may be onto something with the Tommy Fury. Does he really love to box? Because like I said, he was a little afraid of getting hit in that last fight. Maybe he was playing possum. Maybe Tommy was shitballing it, was sandbagging it on purpose because Jake Paul is commentating ringside, talking trash. Maybe he's sandbagging it a little bit. Don't scare the guy off. But, I don't want to say, I don't think that's the case. I think what he had is what he had. So again, I favor Jake Paul because when the two guys eventually time each other up and have to exchange, Jake's going to commit. Jake's less afraid of getting hit. He's going to step inside and sit down on the punch. And Fury, I think, will try to get one off and pull out in time to get away from what's coming back. And in doing that, pulling out, he might get caught pulling out instead of... Sometimes you're safer stepping in, letting the shot go full throttle, keeping the other hand up, or dipping your head right after. But if you try to just, loosey-goose, half-heartedly put the shot in and then pull straight out, boom, that's how you get caught sometimes. I could see that happening with Jake Paul. I could also see Tommy Fury summoning up the courage and the right game plan because he has the tools to pull it off in terms of size, hand speed, and footwork, and a jab. He could get it done, but he's going to have to show more than he's shown in his last couple fights. Jake Paul has shown a willingness to stand in range, to accept that something's going to come back when he steps in there, and he's okay with that. Tommy Fury hasn't shown the ability to be okay with that. So we'll see. We'll see February 26th. It'll be interesting, and we got a legit title fight in the co-main event. So, Chica said, "Hey, bro, long time. Your hair getting long. It is getting long. It's just about haircut time. It's just about trim time. I always keep it long, but it is just about trim time. No doubt about it." Beterbiev knocks out Jake and Tommy in one night, says Rustam S. Absolutely, and we will touch on that monster, that scary man, Artur Beterbiev, in just a moment. Philly Zoe says, Tommy looks like he's naturally a counterpuncher, but he hasn't fought anyone, so he ends up on the front foot. Right, I hear you. But he didn't counterpunch that well against that last opponent that he went 6 rounds with, 2-minute rounds. He didn't walk him into nothing. He just got off on the jab and used his feet to get out of range. He didn't even really use his head movement that much. He didn't pick his hands up to block anything. It was just jab, and then get out of range with the feet. And Jake said, he's fighting like an amateur. And that is what amateurs do primarily. They rely on the feet to get in and out of range rather than, staying in front, staying in the pocket, and making you miss and staying in range. It's so much easier said than done. I acted out like a jackass, but it is so hard. So I'm not throwing shade there, but I'm just saying. So, and speaking of amateur fights, I wanted to touch on this. So it's thought of that, Tommy Fury's this legit boxer, and Jake Paul isn't. He has this experience on him. But truthfully, guys, I don't know because... Where is it here? Yeah, you talk to Tommy, and Tommy says, where's the quote? I only had 12 amateur fights in the end. I went to the Nationals and got to the final. I won the North Regionals twice, so I did reasonably well. I know I'm more suited to the pro game. So we're going to have to take Tommy's word for it that he had those 12 amateur fights, and gun to my head, I would say he probably did. He did. I probably would believe him. But you are taking his word for it. Because when you go to BoxRec, there is no amateur tab. Now, if you go to, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, there's going to be another tab there to look at their amateur bouts, and there are no such amateur bouts. And he said he competed at a high level in the amateurs, not just had 12 fights, but he fought in some regional titles. Now, given how good his jab is and some of the things he does in the ring, I find it hard to believe this was the first time he ever climbed into a boxing ring to compete, amateur or professional. But there is no, proof on Google that he fought as an amateur. So really, it's a guy who's been fighting since 2018 with 8 professional fights against a guy who's been fighting since, 2020 with 6 professional fights. And they both have 4 knockouts. On paper, it's not the gap in experience that it's made out to be. And again, like I touched on earlier, because Sylve at 3-2 beat Julio Cesar Chavez, who was, over 50 professional wins and 30 knockouts as a professional. At one point was, the WBC middleweight champion, as you can see right there. That's the most impressive thing by far on either guy's opponent's resume is that. So really, is there really this gap in experience? Is there really that big of a gap in anything? Because actually in the pros, Jake's fought the slightly tougher competition. And okay, if he really did have those 12 amateur fights and fought in regional and won the nationals and all that kind of stuff over in the United Kingdom, then okay. But if not, then he's been boxing really 1 year longer as a pro than Jake Paul. So is it really the step up in competition that the great salesman, Jake Paul, today's Kim Kardashian, out of his own mouth, is that really he's gonna sell it as, the step up. He's fighting King Kong, he's fighting the most legit professional boxer ever, but, that's not quite the case he's gonna make it out to be. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens February 26th. Let me see what's going on with the chat a little bit. I appreciate you, Chikai. Yeah, man, I get it cut off a little bit, man. Appreciate you saying on the man. Pop Off 93, Boxing and Sports, says Tommy Fury's muscles are slow. They slow him down with punches and bunches. Paul has better punch selection and sits down on his punches. Well said, Pop Off 93. That's exactly what I was saying. Philly Zoe saying that Tommy Fury isn't sharp at all, very amateurish, and that he needs Sugar Hill Stewart. I damn sure would use him if he was in my vicinity and I wanted to learn how to box better. Sugar Hill Stewart is one of the wise men who has the jewels of wisdom that Emmanuel Stewart left behind, and Sugar Hill is one of the guys entrusted with those jewels. So you gotta use him if you're Tommy Fury, but apparently not. Alex Alberto G. Hey Sean, would you say Badou is the favorite to beat Makabu? I think so. Based on how Makabu looked in his last fight, and even though Badou's a smaller guy, an older guy, Makabu's not young, not tremendously skilled. I get the sense that Badou will solidify a pretty good, not a Hall of Fame career, but a pretty good career that night. So I do favor Badou. Ryan, the real deal, says, not gonna lie, FightHype, you that dude. Been watching for years now. You stay giving up-to-date info on the boxing world. Thank you, Ryan, the real deal. And, obviously not just me. I don't even own the site. I'm just one of the capos. I'm not the capo de tutti capi, but I am one of the capos. And we got a lot of guys in California. Another guy, Ron Goodall, lives out here in Vegas. We got guys in New York, guys in the United Kingdom. So it's a team effort. But thank you, brother. All right, now let's get to, the real action, if you want to call it. Oh, we'll get to that in a second. But where are we at? Artur Beterbiev and Anthony Yarde. Let's go ahead and take a look. Shout out, of course, to the best site in the game, FightHype.com. Let's take a look at some of this weigh-in footage here. And I'll get to my fight pick in just a moment. Oh, whoops. Get to my fight pick in just a moment here. See how both guys look. Anthony Yarde, chiseled as always. Some would say maybe too muscle-bound for the light heavyweight division. Maybe a little bit of Anthony Joshua type thing. And we saw, late in the fight with Kovalev, that gas tank hit a wall. But I'm sure that the man is cognizant of that, and with the experience of the Kovalev fight, I expect his endurance, if he gets to the second half of the fight, and that's a big if against a guy like Beterbiev, that, I wouldn't be surprised if it's improved. Now, Beterbiev, made of complete rock, chiseled, but not holding the kind of mass through the chest that Yarde does, and, I'm not a strength and conditioning guy. I need Coach Larry Wade on here to really know what I'm talking about, but I just imagine less mass, less work for those blood cells to pump oxygen to the blood, or however that works. And so Beterbiev with more of the boxer's physique, but both guys completely made of rock. Beterbiev freakishly strong, does all those unorthodox workouts for his forearms and all kinds of workouts he carries with him from the Dagestan area of Russia. And now you see the face-off. Beterbiev a little taller than Yarde. little taller than Yarde, maybe built better, stamina-wise, looking at the two fighters' body, but no fear in Anthony Yarde's eyes. Tough young man from the United Kingdom. Has some haters, but I like him. He strikes me as a cool dude. And Beterbiev does not strike me as a quote-unquote cool dude. He is a bad dude. A BMF, if you will. All right. Shout out Rafael Baker and Melissa Zad. All right. Shout out to the team overseas in the United Kingdom. So, that fight being on, I gotta favor Beterbiev. Obviously, Beterbiev. Actually, if we go back and look at odds, he's a ginormous favorite, I believe. Go here at the odds. Yeah, he's minus 900 to plus 600 for Anthony Yarde. So if you believe in Anthony Yarde out there, bet $100, you win 600. Bet 500, you win 3 G's. If you believe in Beterbiev, keep your money in your pocket because there's no money to be won. You'd have to bet 900 just to get 100 back. So I gotta get it to I gotta give the edge to Beterbiev. Not going with groupthink. I watched tape last night. I always break down the tape. Anthony Yarde, huge Floyd Mayweather influence. I mean, huge. It looks like that's basically the only guy he's borrowed from and studied. And offensively, I think Yarde is at his best on the front foot. He does his best stepping to the guy. He's a good body puncher. He's a good offensive fighter. It looks like a Floyd Mayweather impersonation, but offensively, he pulls it off pretty well. He's a good offensive fighter on that front foot. Problem is, Ash Joe Smith. Fighting an offensive front foot kind of fight against Artur Beterbiev could get you killed out there. And that's kind of, I don't think Yarde's a good puncher. He's not a one-punch knockout puncher. Not the kind of puncher Beterbiev is. He's a good puncher. But not the kind of puncher Beterbiev is. I don't think he's better on the front foot, so if he fights to his strengths, it's not going to be enough. He'll get overwhelmed. He'll run into a guy who could beat him at his strengths, exchanging, going into the fire, mano a mano kind of fight. Beterbiev is going to get him out of there. From what I saw from Yarde, he doesn't have enough defensively on the back foot, counter punching. He doesn't have enough on the back foot to beat Beterbiev. He gets off his best shots stepping to a guy. He doesn't walk guys into right hands. He doesn't walk them into a bunch of check hooks. He's not the slickest guy in the world. He keeps that left hand low, and Beterbiev is very good at shooting that right hand. That's his best punch, is his right hand. And so that could be big trouble for Anthony Yarde if he tries to. And Anthony Yarde isn't the hardest guy to drive to the ropes. Sometimes he likes to fight off the ropes. And Beterbiev makes you dead meat on the ropes. He knows how to place knifing body shots underneath your elbows when he pins you on the ropes, and then the body shot lands, and now you're a sitting target because your feet won't move after having to withstand some of that body work. And then he finds the head, and he's the kind of puncher that once he finds the chin one too many times, the body's not going to hold up. There's some punchers out there, Tank Davis, Deontay Wilder, Artur Beterbiev. The human body just can't hold up consistently to that level of force. And that's the kind of guy Beterbiev is. And I don't think Yarde's going to have enough defensively to get out of the way of that force consistently enough over 12 rounds to get it done. Maybe he catches Beterbiev's 38. Maybe Yarde catches him in the first half of the fight and hurts him. And we got a fight. And it's anyone's fight from there. But if he can't hurt Beterbiev, he's in big trouble. Because he's a big guy. He's a mass guy. He's not going to be fleet-footed for 12 rounds. He's going to stay in there and exchange, and he's good at that. But this is the kind of guy you just can't do that with. He's too physically strong and punches too hard. You got to box his ears off. And I think that's more of what Dimitri Bivol would look to do. Even when you box a guy's ears off, there's going to have to be times you make your stands offensively in a fight. You're going to have to pick your moments, right, to hold your ground. But for the most part, you got to outbox a guy like that. And I don't see Yarde outboxing him. I see Yarde getting some good offense in, but he's not going to win a firefight. And so I favor Beterbiev to win this fight by stoppage. I always like to look at the odds after I come to my own conclusion, because you might be leaning one way or the other, and then you go check Vegas odds, and they got it so much in the other guy's favor that it changes your opinion. I agree with Vegas this time. I see Beterbiev winning the fight by stoppage. Yarde's a tough kid, strong kid, but he's not as strong, and he doesn't have the pop this guy has, and I don't see him. He loves Floyd Mayweather. That Floyd Mayweather impersonation isn't nearly as good on the back foot as it is on the front foot offensively for Yarde. I gotta go with Beterbiev. But he is 38, and Yarde maybe saw something. He clamored for this fight. He's got the fight, overseas. So we'll see how he does. We'll see how it goes. But I gotta favor Beterbiev in this fight. What do you think, chat? Subriel Matias too. You're putting Subriel Matias up there. Jacob's World says the Astros are the Yankees' daddy. They are the Yankees' daddy. I don't lie. I'm an objective sports fan. My Niners got a tough game against the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is better than Brock Purdy. They got a hell of a team. So Astros didn't beat the Yankees because of sign stealing or because of cheating. They're just a better team than the New York Yankees. But guess what? You count all them championships, we got 27 of them, okay? And they're not going nowhere. They don't get to hit delete on the file after 50 years, 100. There's no statute of limitations on those World Series. So good job, Houston. You've been kicking the New York Yankees' ass the last half decade. Win about 23 more championships, and you might be in the ballpark of actually the greatness of the New York Yankees. But anyways, same thing with the Eagles. Y'all beat us Sunday. Win 3 or 4 more Super Bowls, and then we could talk. So, AJ, shout out to AJ, my boy Sean. RK says Arthur Beterbiev by KO. You weren't born, fuck out of here, says Phillies. I was born for the 1994 one. I was there when Steve Young threw 6 touchdown passes. I was born for that one. So, all right, we're 1-1 in my lifetime. But, no, we're not doing that, okay? Like I said, no statute of limitations on those titles, okay? And then for the Yankees, we got 5 of them in my lifetime. So, come on now. Beterbiev got this, says AJ. I do agree. I like Yarde. Some people think he's arrogant, and all that, but he strikes me actually as a cool dude, a cool guy to have a talk with in the gym. And I commend him for chasing down the boogeyman and Beterbiev. But really, the fight, Beterbiev should win this fight, and the fight we all gotta see is Bivol and Beterbiev. And while I'm at it, let's go ahead and let me look up some quotes, because as it pertains to Bivol and Beterbiev, Bob Arum said some interesting things recently. I'm going ahead and looking for this. Let's see here. Here it is, the boxing scene article. Shout, as Brian Custer would call it, the boxing scene. Shout out to the boxing scene. And actually, shout out to my man Hans Themistode, who also works here at FightHype. So this is really a FightHype article, as much as it is a boxing scene article. But my man Hans Themistode, who also works out here in New York for FightHype. And apparently there's some quotes here by Arum. Yeah, I think so. But we gotta be realistic. I think Bivol is looking to first fight Canelo Alvarez. Right. That's what we've heard. Rematch in September. Canelo's first, maybe gonna fight a John Ryder in May, and then he's gonna run back into the rematch with Bivol. So a much bigger financial fight for him. So if that fight happens, Bivol and Beterbiev won't be until next year. So, just to keep that same energy towards all these companies, it's like, we get on. The PBC side, they weren't able to bring Crawford to the table, but now they're going ahead and sending Stephen Fulton overseas to fight Naoya Inoue, and it looks like they're close to making that deal with Golden Boy to make Tank and Ryan. So they've done that in 2023, but Arum is here talking about Bivol Beterbiev might not happen in 2023, and for a fair reason. He understands that Bivol's going to fight Canelo. I mean, that fight takes precedent over it. But I'm just saying, we got to hold their feet to the fire a little bit and make sure that they make the fight happen, that they don't give us the line of reasons that always gets in the way of cross-promotional fights. It's not that much money in it. Beterbiev and Bivol aren't the biggest draws, and they'll expect an exorbitant guarantee because it's for the undisputed title. Whatever. We, the boxing community, has to say whatever, Bob, whatever, Eddie. make the goddamn fight for all 4 belts. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. But it sounds like, of course, Aram's down to do it as long as Bivol isn't tied up with Canelo. So that is the fight in that division, is Beterbiev and Bivol. I'm curious who you guys think wins that fight. Let's see who you guys got winning that fight first, chat. Do you have Beterbiev or Bivol winning that fight? I always gave the edge to Bivol, but I slept on Beterbiev a little bit. I had to put more respect on Beterbiev's name. I was beginning to look at Artur Beterbiev as a fighter that walks straight in, is super strong, was aging, but is vulnerable. He's a guy that, I was using a little bit of the Floyd Mayweather stuff. He's straight up and down with no special effects a little bit, is what I thought he was trending towards. Because in his first 4 or 5 fights in his early 30s, he impressed everyone on the internet. He didn't get any of the network fights until a couple of fights in, but early on, coming out of the amateurs, he blew you away on the boxing message boards. All the hardcore saw him and thought he was incredible. And then he gets dropped by Callum Johnson years later in Chicago, and he started to look a little bit more beatable to me. So I started to sell some of my stock on Beterbiev. But then he knocks out Vazdik, and then he's faced with a guy in Joe Smith who is the guy that I was starting to sell Beterbiev as. He's actually the just really physically strong guy, not that skilled, straight up and down, gonna step right to you. And I saw what Artur Beterbiev did when he's in the ring with that guy. I saw he's not that guy. He destroys that guy, and he's a couple of levels above that guy. So I've put more respect on Beterbiev's name the last 2-3 years, and I think it's closer to a 50-50 type fight with Bivol. I'm still going to favor Bivol because he's I think he's a little faster on the draw. He can get off first. He's got a better jab than Beterbiev. He's got the feet to box for 12 rounds against Beterbiev. But he's also a strong kid, Dimitri Bivol, and I think he's a kid that still hasn't fought with 110% confidence. He boxed more and more as he stepped up in levels of opposition. This is something to look forward to in the Canelo fight. If Bivol, with this increased confidence after beating Canelo and now dominating Zurdo, let's see if he steps on the gas a little bit more offensively and isn't just doing enough to win the rounds, to dominate behind the jab, but looks to put some hurt on his man, because I think Bivol's a strong guy. I think he's a strong young man. He's in his early 30s. He's still got that baby face a little bit, but he's a strong guy. I was talking earlier about when you fight a guy like Bivol, you primarily got to box him. You're not going to go to war. But even when you're boxing a great fight against a guy like Beterbiev, you're going to have to pick your spots. You're going to have to pick your moments in the fight where you stand your ground. And I think Bivol is 100% equipped to do that in spots when he needs to. So I favor Bivol. He's younger, better jab, a little quicker on the draw to get off first. And I think he'll have the physical strength, chin-wise, punching power-wise, physical strength-wise, to hold his own in spots where he absolutely needs to win that fight. What do you guys think, chat? Let's see. AJ said Bivol has better fundamentals, but I still got Beterbiev. Popoff 93 Boxing and Sports says they're both from Russia too. Yeah, both from Russia. Different styles, but a little bit of that same positioning with their hands and little rhythm, but different styles. Both tough, no-nonsense guys. Bivol, more of a kind-hearted guy, more warmer, approachable guy. Beterbiev, made of stone, made of the cold from Russia. Just I don't talk, I fight. I don't want to talk business. I want to fight. He's that kind of cat. Bivol, a little more friendly. Probably he's a little more Americanized. He's been living in California the last half decade, and we've softened him up a little bit. But Philly Zoe says, Philly Zoe, who loves to stick it to me and my Yankees, says, Bivol holds the center of the ring strong. Beterbiev isn't fundamentally sound enough to drown Bivol. Good stuff. Glenn says, by the time Bivol and Beterbiev fight, Beterbiev will be like 39 years old. If Bivol fights Canelo in September this year, I got Bivol by wide decision. Yeah, Glenn, good, fair point. Bivol's got youth on his side, and that matters. Yeah, you like the impersonation? Ryan, the real deal. That's how all them guys, when they came over here from those former Soviet Union countries are Lomachenko, Kovalev, Usyk, Beterbiev. You know, why you ask me these questions? These questions stupid. I hear box, not talk. And not always the funnest personality to interview, but I you understand where they're coming from. They're no-nonsense guys. Bivol will humor you. He'll talk about what happened in sparring with this fighter. He'll laugh a little bit. He'll smile a little bit, you know. So that's where they come from. They're some cold dudes. Sonia Dumas, good to see you in the chat. Canelo coming in 100%, wrist all fixed. Yeah, I expect Canelo, whether he pulls it off or not, to be a better fighter than he was in fight number 2. He's got that pride of a true champion that I think he'll train with that extra bit of zeal in training camp. His stamina has to be better and will be better than it was in fight number 1. Will that be enough to get to turn the tables? I don't know, because he's probably running into a Bivol that's better than he was the first time they fought. So we'll see. Bivol's going to be the clear favorite, but you can't count. Where is he? Can't count that man out right there. Can't count him out. You know what I'm saying? Got Canelo, Morales, Barrera, Winky, Pacquiao, Cotto, Floyd Mayweather. Got a bunch of other fighters. Can't see on camera here too, but yeah. Gustavo Antonio Morales, what's up, brother? Philly Zoe said Beterbiev scared the reporter yesterday. That was hilarious. Yeah, I get it. And I felt for the reporter a little bit. He's like, you trying to start trouble between me and me? You think we no fight Saturday? Why start trouble? We fight Saturday. Why talk? Why do this? And it's like, Arthur, Ali, Mayweather, Marvin Hagler even, who was like yourself. He was a no-nonsense guy. They understood that these cameras talking, that's a part of it. Think of it as a part of your professional obligations. Don't think of it as a nonsense entertainment bullshit taking away from the fight. Think of it as you doing your interview is like you having to do 3 rounds on the bag. You know, it's a part of what comes with the territory of being a champion in professional prize fighting. You got to sell your fight a little bit. But he ain't hearing none of that. So I'd probably be a little shook too if I was the guy interviewing him. So I can't get mad. So let's see here. I wanted to show you guys something else about Beterbiev that really impressed me when I saw it. I saw that, where was it? Yes. So a look back at Artur Beterbiev and Alexander Usyk in their amateur careers. I saw this tweeted out recently. I want you guys to check this out. You know, this is FightHype only, so we can't play these videos from these other channels. But go ahead on YouTube and look it up. Usyk versus Beterbiev highlights. And what was very impressive about this is final round near the end, Beterbiev landed a devastating body shot. The heavy shot dropped Usyk to his knees, but he stood up and finished the fight well. Beterbiev dropped Usyk in the amateurs. This is a guy who's went on to become unified heavyweight champion. Beterbiev still fighting at light heavyweight. But that shows you, you know, this was the amateurs, but still Usyk has held up to body shots from heavyweights, including Joshua in that first fight, hurt him to the body. That shows you the kind of freakish power Artur Beterbiev carries. He wound up losing that fight closely, but he dropped Usyk, and you guys could look at it for yourselves on YouTube, the highlights. He dropped Usyk to the body, and Usyk was hurt pretty bad. It wasn't a flash knockdown. That just shows you the kind of freakish power that man, all those, you know, from the forearm into the fist, just the kind of power he has. He seems like the kind of puncher, you know, like Foreman. He doesn't even have to fully commit and get the shoulder and the back and the hips into. He can sometimes just touch you. Wilder against Hellenius, he was on the back foot and didn't even get full leverage on his right hand. He just touched him, and that was all she wrote. So look that up if you guys don't. I was blown away by it's just the amateurs, but still, Beterbiev dropping Usyk in the amateurs with a body shot, dropping him good too. That's impressive and shows you all along the kind of guy Beterbiev had. And Beterbiev beat Kovalev in the amateurs twice. Reportedly, Kovalev had fear of Artur Beterbiev. So, you know, he's a legit BMF in today's sport. I expect him to get the job done against Anthony Yarde. We all got to see that Bivol fight eventually. And hopefully it happens, if not this year, because, you know, Canelo Bivol is a big fight, a good fight, a rematch. it happens as soon as possible, and that, you know, Matchroom and Top Rank don't play any games. You know, they make the fight that the people want to see. So we'll see that. But that's really about it that I got for you guys today. I'll answer a few more questions in the chat, and then I'll check back in with you guys maybe in a few hours. My man Hassan Rahman Jr. is on the plane right now. He's going to get off the plane in a couple hours. He wanted to discuss Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. He's very familiar with these guys, so, you know, check back in a couple hours to see what Rock thinks about that fight. But other than that, I'll just see what we got here. Philly Zoe, Beterbiev and Subriel Matias's power is crazy because they don't really whip their shots, but it's bone crushing. Yeah, and you're talking about what I'm talking about. They don't have to whip. They don't have to get everything and sit down on it. Sometimes they can just touch you with the power, with kind of an arm punch. And there's so much coming from here that it gets the job done. So that is a rare gift, you know, in boxing. Lonnie B. Ant McQueen says Lionel Thompson, you know, the guy who pieced up Jose Uzcategui about 2 years ago. Lonnie Thompson, who sparred Beterbiev, said he was hit by a car and said being hit by Beterbiev was worse. I remember. He did that with my man, True School Sports. Actually, funny story, I was walking into the gym out here in Vegas to see Rahman Jr. train for Jake Paul, and Lonnie B's there at the gym, and we wound up getting into an argument about Benavidez and Beterbiev, and Lonnie fought Benavidez or sparred with him. He's very familiar with Benavidez. No, he didn't fight Benavidez. Mama's boy, Dennis Douglin, fought Benavidez. Lonnie a few times had a fight on the table with Benavidez, but it never happened. He wasn't offered a whole lot of money. But anyways, Lonnie would get mad at me. I mean, he was vehement that there's no way David would beat Beterbiev, because I'm very high on David. I'm telling him, I don't know, man. Him walking straight in against a guy like Benavidez, who's really a light heavyweight fighting at super middleweight. He may be a 68-pounder, but when he moves up to 75, I think he'll be even better and comfortable there than 68. And Benavidez, with that hand speed advantage, he may not punch like Beterbiev, but he can punch. And with the hand speed advantage, combination punching advantage, there is no size advantage, in my opinion, if David went to light heavyweight. There's a punching power advantage for Beterbiev, but this kid could punch too. I favored Benavidez, and Lonnie was not hearing it. He went on and on about how impressive and dangerous. He sparred both guys plenty of times, Benavidez and Beterbiev, and he told me it was levels above Benavidez, the kind of danger he brings into the ring as a puncher and just as a fighter. So, Ant McQueen, appreciate you bringing up what Lonnie said, because I've had arguments where he's gotten heated with me, telling me there's no way Benavidez would beat Beterbiev and that Beterbiev's a fucking animal. And yeah, so J7 says David Benavidez whoops Canelo. Well, Oscar De La Hoya picked him, Benavidez, to beat him. I do think the night that Bivol beat Canelo, with the way Canelo was gassed by round 7 and taking breaks on the ropes, I think if he didn't stop David that night, if David was in the ring with him that night and he didn't stop him to the body in the first 4 or 5 or 6 when he was fresh, he'd have gotten beaten up worse than he did by Bivol, because David's a more of a combination puncher than Bivol. He's going to take more chances. And if Canelo got winded like he did against Bivol, he'd have been in even more trouble, I think, against Benavidez. Styles make fights, and I think David, with his punch output and hand speed and combinations, I think Canelo would have gotten battered a little bit down the stretch of that fight that night if that was David in the ring. But we'll see. Philly Zoe, I had Benavidez beating them all, not easily, just more tools. I love David. We got to see in the Caleb fight how he holds up defensively in the center of the ring. He's not going to be able to just get away with catching shots and then smirking and grinning at guys and walking them to the ropes. He's going to have to be on his P's and Q's defensively in the center of the ring. He's going to have to work behind that jab in the center of the ring and not just let Caleb dictate in the center of the ring and wait to fire off when he gets him to the ropes. That's how that fight can get away from him. So I'm looking for David to show more work in the center of the ring against a guy like Caleb. He does that. If he could beat Caleb in the center of the ring and not just on the ropes, that'll tell us a lot about David's skills. We already know he's a good puncher. We already know he's a beast. but that'll tell us he's a really skilled fighter if he could hold his own and then some in the center of the ring with Plant. And not just wear him out, stalk him, and then get to him on the ropes in the second half of the fight. If he can out-jab Caleb, match his jab, out-jab him in the center of the ring and things like that, that would be very impressive for David in that fight. March 25th, by the way. And you really believe that, Sean? David Benavidez is all hype. I don't think he's all hype. I think David has one of the best jabs in boxing. He's got that rare blend of tremendous hand speed to go with good punching power and big. He's a big guy. You don't expect a big guy who can punch like that to have that kind of hand speed. And he has a really good jab to set it all up. He's not just a plotter walking in. He does stand straight up sometimes. His level of opposition has been lacking for being a 25, 26-year-old. By this point, you'd have hoped he'd fought better opposition. I don't actually think that's his fault. But yeah, I mean, so we'll find some answers against Plant, but I don't think David Benavidez is tailor-made for Canelo. So I don't know about that. Canelo struggles with a good jab. David has a great jab. If he can't get underneath David's elbows and hurt him to the body in the first half of that fight could get ugly for Canelo as it goes on, because David can throw 80, 90 punches around, and Canelo, with that the jab is, the jab of Golovkin, the jab of Mayweather, the jab of Lara out of the southpaw stance, the jab of Bivol has given him problems. David has a great jab. If David can take it to the body, if he can withstand some of Canelo's heat and keep dishing it out, he could outwork Canelo and out jab Canelo. Bigger, younger. He's a bigger, younger guy, more active. He could definitely beat Canelo Alvarez. That's a toss-up kind of fight in my opinion. So, but David Benavidez has fought all C, D level fighters. I don't think Durrell. I think Durrell is a good B level fighter. So we'll give him Durrell. Even Canelo said Anthony Durrell. So he gave him that one name. But you got to look at the eye test sometimes. He's not going life or death with D or C level guys. He's blowing them out the water. So if he's showing each time against C and D level guys that he's 3 or 4 levels above, that means he's probably an A level fighter, but you never know it for sure until he fights another A level fighter. But I'd have to disagree with you, Sonia. I'm high on Benavidez. I love his hand speed. I love his jab. I actually think he has underrated reflexes, even though he stands straight up sometimes. I've always been high on Benavidez ever since he was 19 years old and beat Thomas Top Dog Williams, who went 7 rounds with Adonis Stevenson when Stevenson was the champ. Then he gets in there with David, and David took him out in like 2 rounds. I knew then at 19 this kid was the real deal. Aunt McQueen, I appreciate your X's and O's there. Aunt McQueen says, agreed, Sean. Lead hand control in general gives Canelo issues because he's so heavy on the front foot. Right, good point. And Floyd Mayweather I'd always hear in the gym when I'd hear him work. And by the way, I'm not some Floyd disciple. The man's not a god. It's not like his word is law. But few people are going to know as much about this boxing as Floyd Mayweather, and that's a fact. And he would always say in the gym, for as good as Canelo is, he would say, for as good as he is, he wouldn't just trash him. He said, that motherfucker can't get out of the way of a jab. That's quoting Floyd. And that was before Bivol beat him on the jab. He was saying this when he was getting Tank Davis ready for Leo Santa Cruz. And he just explained in the gym as he was hitting the bag, you got to have a great jab to beat Canelo. And I think what Floyd's getting at is that great head movement on the front foot. You throw the right hand or the left hook, he'll get underneath that. He'll see it coming. It's just got to be the quick piston jab that, even with his great head movement, he's not going to get out of the way of that 100% of the time. The right hand coming from the back or coming with the hook, he's going to see it coming. But that quick jab, even with his head movement, he's going to get knocked up with it a little bit. So that's the key, Mayweather has always said. And David has that. Sonia Dumas says he should blow them out. They're all C and D level fighters. Right, but when you saw Demetrius Andrade against a C or D level fighter, he didn't blow him out, right? David did. So he did what he was supposed to do. If this guy is C or D level, like you said, you're supposed to blow him out. When De La Hoya fought Daryl Cooley, he blew his ass out. And that's what David's been doing. That's all he can do against these level of guys. He's been blowing them out. So now he finally gets one of the fights he's been waiting for. If he wins it, I think he will. Then hopefully, he gets to fight. Either he gets a Canelo fight or he moves up to 175 and fights the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol, because he can't just wait on a Canelo sweepstakes forever. You got to make your own mark at that point. If the guy doesn't want to fight you, or he doesn't feel you've earned it or whatever, then it doesn't happen. Then you go on and blaze your own trail. So, J7, I hear Ryo versus Chris Colbert is on the undercard. Good fight, J7. That'd be perfect. They're both coming off losses. They both got talent. Ryo has talent because of his power. Chris has talent because of his speed. They both got a lot of things to sharpen up and to work on. Ryo's got to work on his defense. So does Chris, actually. But Ryo really has to work on his defense, but he has talent. He is a puncher. And Chris is got some of the fastest hands in boxing. Really underestimated Hector Luis Garcia. Really showed a lot of hubris going into that fight, but still a guy blessed with some great hand speed, and against guys like King Tug, he flashed some really good skills that just didn't show up against Hector Luis. But I love that fight actually as an undercard fight. Right, Ant McQueen, Jamal Charlo is my guy. But to your point, he had no business being in as tough as fight as he did with Juan Macias Montiel. Exactly. If you put Juan Macias Montiel in there with David, he'd have blown him out in 2 or 3 rounds, right? And so because David probably is an A-level fighter, he just has to have the opportunity, and he does March 25th. So we'll see. And I think part of why Jamal didn't look good against Macias Montiel, well, he won just about every round, hurt him multiple times, but also got hit with a lot of shots, hit with uppercuts, is because if you keep fighting that, and thank God David's getting this Caleb fight now, because I think if you continue to compete against subpar opposition, you'll take a step back. Instead of getting better, you'll take a step back. I think we saw that happen with Caleb in the Truax fight. Because Caleb looked dynamite against Uzcategui, especially in the first 8 rounds. And then, okay, Vincent Feigenvoets is Vincent Feigenvoets, but he looked good. He looked really good. He showed some beautiful stuff in there. Mike Lee drops him 18 times in 3 rounds, does what he's supposed to do. But then that Caleb Truax fight, it was like one fight too many, because then Caleb he regressed. He took a step back, and then he goes the full 12 with Truax, gets hit with the uppercut. He wins every round, but doesn't look as sharp as he did against Feigenvoets, Uzcategui, and Mike Lee. So, yeah, Mark Luniga says, yeah, you'll get sloppy. Benavidez versus Beterbiev, who wins? Your pick. I got to give the edge to Beterbiev right now. I got to put the respect on the champion's name. And David has to show me more defensively that he can get out of the way, because the way David likes to put the earmuffs on and just stay on the ropes every now and then and stand tall on the ropes and then let you shoot off and then he'll burst off. Beterbiev's very good at knifing the body shot below the elbow if you lay on the ropes. And David will have never been hit with something like that, and he'll feel it. And so I just think that David, he needs a fight against a Caleb Plant, he needs another fight or two at the real world-class level, and I think he has the talent and the hand speed and the punching power and the size to beat Beterbiev with Beterbiev coming forward. I think he could do it. He's faster than Beterbiev, but right now, with his level of experience and with Beterbiev, even though he's 38, still firing on all cylinders, yeah, 75, I'd give the edge to Beterbiev. But I think David has a higher ceiling than Beterbiev, with that tremendous combination of punching power and hand speed. He has the speed that Beterbiev wasn't blessed with to go along with very good power. Not the power Beterbiev has, but very good power. If David can I think both guys reaching their potential, Benavidez has a little bit higher ceiling. But at 25, only been in a couple title fights, we haven't seen that ceiling maximized. Let's see now, in his prime, in his mid-20s, now finally getting the real big fights. Let's see what we get from Benavidez. I'm excited to see it. So, Pop Off 93 Boxing and Sports says Canelo doesn't fight Mexicans. Well, I was actually the guy that asked Canelo kind of infamously about the Benavidez and the Mexican thing, and I didn't do that to throw shade at Canelo. I just want to see Canelo and Benavidez fight one day. And by the way, it's not my life, it's not my career. If Canelo chooses not to fight him, he chooses not to fight him. The world will go on. The sun will come up the next day. But I think Canelo will fight Benavidez if the public continues to demand it, and if Benavidez puts himself in a position by winning good fights that the public demands it. I think Canelo would take that. Canelo fought Angulo and Chavez Jr., huge underdogs. He was expected to blow out, and he did. Benavidez is a much tougher fight than they are, but I don't think Canelo would duck the smoke if the public really is banging on the door. I think he has a point when he says, look, this guy hasn't done enough to force me in the ring quite yet. You guys that know boxing a long time know the rules. When it's a veteran champion, in order to really get him in the ring with that young killer is going to have to bring a lot of money to the table. He's going to have to do something to entice the champion to get in there. And I think David beating Plant is going to go a long way in doing that. So I do think Canelo would fight Benavidez if Benavidez can win some fights and put himself in a position that his door is really getting knocked on, and not just by long-haired looking motherfuckers like me. I think when the public is universally demanding the Benavidez fight, he'll get in there and do it. Sonia says, Sean, let's hope you don't eat your words on David Benavidez. I will remind you. I got you, Sonia. I got you. You can come right back. If David gets pieced up and outboxed by Caleb Plant and is walking in straight up and getting his head knocked up and he gets dropped by the left hook by Plant, and Plant shimmying the shoulders and looking like sweet hands, I'll eat all the crow. I'll get a fork and knife, and you, Sonia, you can come in. But I don't think that's the case. I think I like Benavidez, so we'll see. But David better be able to take a shot. I know he got dropped by Ronald Gavril, but that is a little bit like holding Canelo feet to the fire for getting hurt by Jose Cotto when he was young and was the same age David was when he got dropped by Gavril. They were puppies then. So, but we got to see how David's chin holds up. Plant's not a huge puncher, but he has enough pop that if he kept lines you up clean like he did Durrell, it could get your attention. It could maybe score a knockdown. So we'll see. Beterbiev versus Usyk at cruiserweight. In the pros, I'd have favored Usyk. I think Usyk would have won that fight. He had the feet to get it done, to play keep away, and he's got enough oomph on that left hand to keep Beterbiev honest. And I think that fight would have looked like Beterbiev when he fought Vazdik, who was also from the Ukraine, like Usyk, except Usyk, unlike Vazdik, would have been able to hold up for 12 rounds with the movement, punching off the pivots and the angles. I think his gas tank, and maybe he would have got dropped like he did when they were amateurs, but I think he would have got up and withstood it. I think Usyk would have won that fight. Matt's Adventures, thank you for the 5, brother. Saunders might be better than both Plant and Benavidez, but he won't take boxing serious, especially after he got that bag from Canelo. Matt, you are high on Billy Joe. Billy Joe was impressive at 160 power, the physicality and size and physical strength at 168 pounds. He was a formidable guy. Oh shit, I stopped streaming for a second there. He was a formidable guy at 160. Where guys were more his size. At 68, Billy Joe was too small. I don't think he ever had the power to keep these guys off. So I got to disagree, Matt. I appreciate the 5, but I don't think Billy Joe was ever going to be an elite killer at 168. At 160, he could give anybody their hands full. But yeah, that's how I see Billy Joe. The most he ever impressed me was in that 3rd round against Andy Lee. But he didn't finish him. Andy Lee made it to the finish line that night, and he may have even won a split in that fight. So, Sean, you being too nice. Canelo's scared to death of Benavidez. I don't think Canelo's scared to death of anybody. I really don't. I do think they waited Triple G out a little bit. That's for sure. He vacated the 160-pound belt, and then came back, circled the block, and then they made the fight when Canelo was more in his prime and he grew into 160. But I felt like Canelo doing that was just as much, if not more, about him growing into being a real 160-pounder than it was about aging the other guy out. It actually killed two birds with one stone. He got to grow into a full 160, and he got to age Triple G out a little bit. But I'll give Canelo the true champion designation, even with maybe some PED cheating in the past. But I think Canelo, if Benavidez beats Plant and continues to remain undefeated, I think Canelo will take that fight at some point. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Stikey, in my opinion, I think Mayweather has the highest IQ in the history of boxing. He certainly might. He's on the short list. But I will offer this. I love Bernard Hopkins. Hopkins along with Eric El Terrible Morales and probably Sugar Ray Leonard, my favorite fighters of all time. But one thing, so you look at, I'm not sure Floyd has a higher IQ than Bernard Hopkins because Bernard wasn't blessed with the gifts Floyd was. Bernard's a good athlete. Floyd's an amazing athlete as it pertains to boxing. His reflexes are second to none. When you talk about cat-like reflexes, especially in the early days, Floyd had cat-like reflexes from 130 to 140 in particular, some of the absolute fastest hands in boxing history. So Floyd had some gifts that Bernard doesn't have. And because Bernard didn't have those gifts that Floyd has, I think Bernard had to learn an extra trick or two that even Floyd doesn't know in terms of positioning and subtle things with the sweet science and all that. I think actually Bernard has an extra trick or two up his sleeve skills-wise that Floyd has. It's just that Floyd is such a better athlete than Bernard. But Floyd isn't like Roy Jones. It's not like he just relied on the athleticism and was fundamentally not sound. No, Floyd is completely fundamentally sound and is one of the most skilled fighters ever. But Larry Merchant, who, a lot of people always, thought of as a hater when it came to Floyd, and he did hate on him sometimes, but he also gave him tremendous credit sometimes. And Larry would say what makes Floyd unbeatable is he's an out-of-this-world talent mixed with out-of-this-world skills. Usually a guy with out-of-this-world talent isn't going to quite get all the way to out-of-this-world skills because the athleticism takes care of so much of it for him. And unlike Roy and Ali, who would pull out with their chin straight up, and Floyd never did that. So, yeah, Floyd is definitely on the short list of the smartest fighters ever. That list would include Pernell Whitaker, Roberto Duran, Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, Bernard Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather, Alexis Arguello, I think, was an incredibly intelligent fighter, knew how to beat a guy with faster hands with intelligent pressure. And the list goes on a little bit, but Chris Bird, Chris Bird was a brilliant IQ fighter from Michigan too. So Floyd is S tier. He's at the top of the top in terms of boxing brains, no question about it. But I would just say that there's other guys that belong to be right there with him. Matt's Adventures, are you from New York? Hey, Matt, again, wanted to appreciate you again earlier. I'm from New York originally. Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, Bensonhurst, the Guinea area, Guinea land, and but I moved to Vegas when I was 7. And actually, before I got to Vegas, I had to live in the Bay for about a half year with my grandparents. Grandpa was from Italy, so he schooled me. You're Italian and you love the 49ers. I was indoctrinated, so there you go. Andrew Cano, Crawford reflexes are beautiful to watch. They are, but at 36, they're lessening. He's getting hit more, especially with the right hand in that southpaw stance. He's been getting hit with right hands more. Avanesian hit him with the right hand in round 1. Father Time waits for nobody, and it tends to age. Although Pacquiao and Floyd somehow were able to win big fights at 38 and 40 years old, they broke the rules. Usually, when you're blessed with tremendous gifts, those guys don't age as well as the guys who weren't, who had to rely on skills and all that. The guys that athleticism plays a significant part of their game, they usually don't age well, but Floyd was able to beat Manny at 38, and Manny was able to beat Keith at 40. Modern nutrition, right? But, yeah. Oh, you're from Bensonhurst too, 20th Ave? Yeah, I'm from 83rd and Bay Parkway. So, kind of in the middle of Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge. But so shout out AB, Bensonhurst in the house. Mark Luganis, I like Aaron Pryor style. Aaron Pryor was one of a kind. The way he attacked, his angles, the way he worked levels, very unique in how he worked his combinations and angles. The only guy that reminds me of Aaron Pryor is Pacquiao, except Pacquiao was a southpaw, and obviously they do some things differently. But in terms of that in and out, unorthodox, attacking, swarming style from all angles, usually being the shorter guy too, Pacquiao and Aaron Pryor remind me of each other in that sense. And that would have been an amazing fight, Aaron Pryor and Manny Pacquiao. Realm Yola 1, again, asking who do I got winning, Beterbiev versus Yarde. Rewind if you want the full breakdown, but I got Beterbiev. Ultimately, Yarde, he does his best work on the front foot. And you ain't going to beat a guy like Beterbiev with his physical strength and punch and power on the front foot. You know, maybe he can. Callum Johnson caught unsuspecting Beterbiev and dropped him. So if Callum Johnson can do it, Yarde's a better fighter, more talented than Callum Johnson. But I don't think Beterbiev is coming in sleepy like he did with Callum. So I got to go with that because I don't see Yarde being defensively slick enough, being a good enough counterpuncher to fight on the back foot and beat Beterbiev that way. Yarde, to me, when I watch tape on him, he always does his best work offensively, stepping to the guy. Good body puncher, too. You could tell, huge Floyd Mayweather fan is Anthony Yarde. But so I got to go with Beterbiev in this fight. Thoughts on Hagler? I mean, just Hagler is incredible. Little guy, actually, despite all those muscles. What was he, 5'9 and a half? And back then, you weighed in the same day. You didn't have that 24-hour rehydration cycle. Would Hagler even be a middleweight in today's boxing? Would he be a 154-pounder? He might be. I love Hagler. I don't really think Sugar Ray Leonard and him were in their primes when they fought. They weren't shot. I mean, they were still Ray and Marvin, but I don't actually think I think Marvin was a little past his best by the time Ray got to him, and so was Ray. And then also Marvin, I'm biased to my era. I think Bernard Hopkins would have beat Marvin Hagler. Bernard was 6'1". He wound up fighting as high and winning, being the champion at 175. Like I said, Marvin, same day weigh-ins, he might actually be a 154-pounder in today's boxing. I think Hopkins would have beat Hagler. But yeah, Hagler. What's great about Hagler is how much the casuals knew him and the casual sports fans revered him. He was one of those 5 to 10 guys that people who don't really know boxing knew of. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. So you gotta love Hagler if you love boxing. But let's see here. Rustam S says Yarde looks physically stronger and more powerful than Beterbiev. His looks can be deceiving in boxing. This isn't bodybuilding. Robert Guerrero was a featherweight, right? A featherweight with no real, not a whole lot of muscle on him. Andre Berto, muscle-bound, natural welterweight, fought his whole career at welterweight, had knocked out welterweights. Robert Guerrero was a featherweight, not a lot of muscle on him. But when they fought, Robert Guerrero was the boss. He was the guy who dropped Berto. He was the guy who was aggressive against Berto, took the fight to Berto, put Berto on his heels, put Berto on his ass, and beat him up for 12 rounds. So that's just one of a million examples of how the muscle-bound guy doesn't necessarily have the edge in physicality. Just look at Robert Guerrero versus Andre Berto for one example. There's several others. Tyson Fury, decent boxing, great IQ. Tyson Fury has a great boxing IQ. And the best feint in the game. Tyson Fury's little step off to the left, double feint, and then pop, shoots the jab after feint, and feints you out of position. Tyson Fury got great boxing IQ. We know that. AB says Tim Bradley had no power with all those muscles. Right. Good point. I mean, Tim was a dog, had good hand speed, good combination puncher, underrated boxer. In terms of his athleticism in and out and getting away from shots. He may not have done it in the sexiest style, but it worked. But no punching power. No punching power. Which is why I was so shocked. People were surprised when he stopped Brandon Rios, who had this great chin. Pacquiao couldn't stop him, but then Tim Bradley stopped him. Because even if you're not a puncher, you hit a guy enough, clean enough, and you're committing to the shot enough like Tim was that night, you could surprise people and get a knockout when they didn't think you could. So let's see. All right, we'll close in a moment here. Close in a moment here. Someone asked, can Ryan upset Tank? Can Ryan upset Tank? Absolutely. 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 He could knock Tank out with a left hook. It could happen. Tank is the shorter guy. Inevitably, like he did against Barrios, he's going to have to cut the distance. He's going to have to be the guy who walks in. Tank knows how to walk in and get his head off the line. He knows how to walk in with his hands up high and stay low underneath and get underneath and cut the disc. He knows how to do that. Go watch the Mario Barrios fight. But even with you knowing how to do that, you are taking chances by trying to walk into range of a puncher like Ryan with the hand speed of Ryan. But Tank isn't worried about winning rounds early on. I think when Lomachenko isn't worried about winning rounds early on, they call it downloading data. Tank does the same thing. It doesn't get mentioned when he does it as much. But Tank downloads data, and what I think he'll do with Ryan is he'll want to get a look at that check left hook. He'll want to bait it out several times in the first half of that fight, and he'll get a look at the angle it comes out on, and he'll figure. And this is what I see Tank trying to do. He'll figure that out. He'll figure that trick out from Ryan, and once he figures that out, how he has to step in, whether it's feint to draw it out and then step in and come in with it, or whether it's he knows a certain angle, how to duck underneath it and then come up with his own. However Ryan figures it out by giving away early rounds early and letting Ryan throw it out there, I think if that happens, Tank can figure Ryan out a little bit. He could figure out that one-trick pony. Ryan has a good right hand, doesn't use it enough, doesn't use his jab at all. So Tank might, like I said, give away early rounds, let him throw it out there, but once he figures that out, Ryan could be in big trouble. And then Tank could line him up for a shot, and if he does line Ryan up for a shot, he will be hurt. Because if you get dropped by Luke Campbell, you're going to at the very least be hurt and stunned by Tank Davis's punch, if not dropped and severely hurt thereafter. So I got to favor Tank, but if Ryan does use his straight right hand a little bit more, if Tank in the early rounds, when he's giving away rounds like he always does, is just looking for the left hook, but Ryan isn't giving it to him, he's just taking what's there, he's touching him, he's using his jab more, and Ryan needs to use the straight right hand. That's the punch that almost always works against the southpaw, or it doesn't almost always work, but more times than not, the shot that gets off against the southpaw is going to be the right hand. I know everyone says it's the right hand and the left hook, but I think you got to get the right hand in first. That's the primary shot against the southpaw. Ryan's got to take that right hand, and then when Tank finds himself behind on the cards and starts taking chances, that's when he can let the hook go and walk him into something when Tank's behind on the cards. But if he's a one-trick pony and he's trying to walk Tank into that hook from round one, and that's what he keeps trying to do in round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, he might feel comfortable because Tank will give him those rounds, but Tank's figuring out that one trick, and that'll catch up with him later on in the fight. So Tank deserves to be the favorite. He's the more savvy veteran. He's shown more tools in his bag. But Ryan, with his gifts and speed and power and his advantage in size, he's got a shot to pull this thing off. If he does some of the things I'm talking about, I think. I mean, I'm not Teddy Atlas, but that was me taking my crack at it. So that's how I see it. If you ask me right now to put some money on it, I'm picking Tank. Experience matters. It doesn't always matter. I'll pick the more talented guy more times than not over the more experienced guy. But Ryan's not more talented than Tank. They're both immensely talented and gifted. One guy has fought much better opposition and has been in numerous title fights and has seen different styles. He's fought a vets. Gamboa was shot, but he's still a crafty vet. Those 12 rounds gives you something. He's fought a myriad of styles, from Rolly Romero's unorthodox come-forward style to Mario Barrios being tall and tight and playing keep away and trying to play long, to Leo Santa Cruz. And so Hector Garcia is no bum. These kind of fights make you better. And that's gonna pay off for Tank in this fight. Ryan's never officially been in a world title fight. Tim Tszyu and Jermell Charlo, right? I was picking Jermell Charlo, still would, but Tim Tszyu now is going to get a fight in against Tony Harrison, and I think Tim Tszyu will win that fight. If he wins that fight, his chances against Charlo just go up because now he got that experience in. He got a taste of that level more, and that improves you. So that's going to hurt Ryan in this fight, I think. I don't count him out. If he could still walk Tank into a shot, but got to give the edge to Tank. So I hope you guys enjoyed that breakdown. Ant McQueen, Pedraza 2, right? Pedraza 2. What was my favorite interview that I've done over the years? Asked Colin Ruiz. People ask me that, and nothing. I've interviewed a lot of them. I've been blessed to interview just about everyone I've ever wanted to. Some of the guys I want to interview are no longer with us, and then other guys like George Foreman and Larry Holmes, I just haven't had the chance to come across them. I've interviewed everyone you see behind me, thankfully, but I don't know. I had an interview with Floyd go viral on the Breakfast Club 6-7 years ago when I was with the Boxing Voice. That was cool. I've interviewed Bernard Hopkins when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and with him being my favorite fighter growing up, that was cool. I enjoy all my interviews with Rolly Romero because it's fun. We have a good time. Is it the most hard-hitting journalistic work I've done? No, not at all. But we have a good time, and I felt like me and Rolly helped make him and Tank a bigger fight. And that was kind of crazy that just this YouTube channel, FightHype, and me, and just little old me and little old Rolly shooting the shit in the gym amassed all these millions of views and turned this kid with 14 fights into a fight people were really looking forward to. And that kind of lived up to the name of the site. That we hyped the fight. That was FightHype. In terms of the more, hard-hitting stuff, I've got a number of interviews that I hope I did well at, but I could always do better. And for as many times as I've tried to ask the right questions, there's been times I haven't, and I haven't gotten in there and asked the toughest or the best question possible because of access or things like that. So, I'm not, just to be transparent with you guys, I could always get better. What's the best piece of boxing wisdom you've heard in your career? God, that's a great question. And I've honestly, I don't say this arrogantly, smoking weed doesn't help with memory, by the way. But I've probably forgotten more boxing wisdom from great boxing minds than most people will ever hear. And that's a shame that I've forgotten some of it. There's just so many rules that the wise men like Emmanuel would lay out. Teddy Atlas, Freddie Roach, Emmanuel Stewart. Derek James right now is one of those guys. Nonito Donaire, Bernard Hopkins, Andre Ward, Tim Bradley, Floyd Mayweather. I've had Floyd Mayweather drop jewels on me in his gym. It's hard, it just, they come out of me as I talk about boxing. The reason why I'm able to talk about boxing the way I can is because of the minds I've listened to. Whenever I've been around Bernard or Floyd or Andre, 2 ears, one mouth. I make sure they're doing more of the talking, so I'm learning. Sean Porter has taught me a lot. Kenny Porter has taught me a lot. My original coaches, I came up boxing with Pat Barry, Augie Sanchez taught me everything. So, I don't know. I don't want to say any one thing. It's a number of rules that you learn over the years. Boxer usually beats a pressure fighter at the top level. But the pressure fighter, if he has superior stamina, if he could take a punch for 12 rounds, he can get to that guy in the second half and win the fight. Honestly, there's so many laws of the sport that you gotta learn from the people who really. Barry Hunter out there in DMV has given me a lot of game. So yeah, I wish I could answer it better for you, Jason Wheeler, but all I can say is it comes out through the way I look at boxing and the way I give opinions. It's all because of the schooling I've had from coaches and fighters and trainers. So, Real Trap Will says, do I believe Makabu versus Jack on the Paul versus Fury card is setting up Jake for a title shot? Ooh, good question. Damn, good question. No, I don't think so immediately. No, I think Badou and his manager Amir Abdallah, they got good business connections out there in the Middle East. And no, I just think they've set themselves up for a title fight on the card. I don't think Jake's going to look to get in there with Badou Jack or Ilunga Makabu after. But you might be on the right trail, though. You're not crazy for thinking that, and I appreciate you raising that suggestion. Maybe so, but maybe at some point. But I don't think Jake Paul beats Tommy Fury. He's jumping right in there with the winner of Badou Jack and Ilunga Makabu. I don't think that. He's still got to find a way to get Conor McGregor in the ring. That's where all the money's at. And I'm still curious if at some point Floyd Mayweather's going to get phone calls for a full court press to fight Jake Paul, because with pay-per-view numbers not doing that great, the networks, Viacom, CBS, whoever, might feel like, the fight that we could really make money on is Jake Paul or Floyd Mayweather. So I'm still curious if in 2023 we start hearing rumblings of Floyd getting offered to fight Jake back in the States. We'll see. Hey man, barbers E2 says Joy Vlog. I know, man. I know. I'll get to the salon soon enough. I don't go to the barbers. Barbers don't do good with long hair. They'll line you up. They give you the lineup and the fade and all that. But I keep my hair long, so I gotta go to the ladies. I go to the salon to get my hair cut. Let's see. Floyd was dead tired after fighting Logan. I can't see him fighting Jake, says Real Trap Will. I agree. I mean, I hear you. I don't think he wants to take that fight. But business, sometimes people in the business world could, in that situation, I'm speculating, could put pressure on him. You know what I mean? Floyd, we made a lot of business over the years. Here at Showtime, we love to make tons of money with you again, and this Jake Paul fight could make a lot of money, and you never know. He could feel a little bit of a full court press from the people in the business to get in there with Jake Paul. It's something I won't be surprised if I see it in 2023. If you start seeing reports of Jake Paul or his team targeting Floyd, and people in the business start talking it up, none of that could come to pass whatsoever. But it's just something on my antennas right now. When you look at how pay-per-view buy rates are doing in the United States, sometimes that gets you a knock on the door from your superiors, and they say, "Hey, enough of these fights. Give us Jake and Floyd, because we actually think that could do 1 million pay-per-view buys, and that's what we're in this boxing business for. Isn't just to be in buy. We're in here for the big bucks, baby," and that kind of talk. So, just something I think about going forward. Maybe we never hear nothing about it. Floyd did not have fun fighting Logan compared to other big shit. No, because it's a more dangerous fight. He's fighting a complete novice, but a guy who's 50, 60 pounds heavier than him, 6'3", 6'4", against 5'8", against a 5'8", nearly 50-year-old man, against a young, strong, country strong kid. Of course, of course. So, but money has a funny way sometimes of making people do things they don't really want to do. So something to look out for with the Jake Paul Floyd Mayweather stuff, or nothing happens whatsoever. But guys, I think that's about it. I've been rambling for 90 minutes. I'll come back on in a couple hours with Rahman, get his pick and prediction and thoughts on Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, and then I'll be on live tomorrow afternoon to call Arthur Beterbiev defending the WBC, WBO, IBF titles against Anthony Yarde on ESPN Plus. I'll be doing a live round by round, so you guys can hop in and join me for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed the live. Let's see. What do you think about this take? Regis is the most avoided fighter in boxing right now. I guess we'll close on that. I get it. He has officially, he's been avoided by Jose Ramirez and now Teofimo Lopez, right? So we'll see. But here's the thing. Him being the champion, and I'm a traditionalist, I'm never mad at the champion feeling like he deserves more money, but when in fact you're not a draw, and Lopez and Ramirez have the network deals, they have the network that'll broadcast the fight, and they can sell more tickets than you, then you might have to negotiate with, you might have to call their bluff if you're pro Grace and say, all right, then fine, 50-50. Now will you take the fight? And then if Lopez and Ramirez don't get in the ring, then it's 1,000,000% a duck. But Prograis, you're the champion, and that matters, obviously, but you might have to be realistic about if you actually want the Ramirez fight to come off, or Teofimo Lopez to come off, or Devin Haney, when Devin Haney moves up to 140, and he'll inevitably want that WBC belt. I don't think Haney would get in the ring with Prograis for 35%, and I don't think Haney's afraid to fight Regis Prograis or anybody. I think Devin would just say, ain't no way I'm taking 35% against Regis Prograis. So, yeah, he's been avoided, but Regis does have to consider that too. You're not really a draw, and these guys aren't huge draws, but they are bigger draws than you, and they do bring the network. So you might have to move off that purse bid guarantee of 35 if you really want to see if these guys are about it or not. If you really want to pull their card and see and remove any excuse, say, fine then, I'll give you 50-50. You're the one with the network, you're the draw, but I'm the champion. So we both bring something to the table, 50-50. If those guys were to walk away at that point, then there's no defending. What do you think? What do you think, Leonardo?
Baymax.
Baymax.
What is Baymax?
I'm talking boxing with the people.
Every Baymax.
Can you box for the people? Can you show them some boxing? There you go. Can you do a body shot? Oh, you're gonna punch the mic? Do a body shot. There you go. Say hi. Okay.
Please don't say bye.
Well, we're gonna end the show now, guys. I want to thank everyone for joining us.
It's a bee, Mom.
Yeah, will you say bye-bye?
Bye.
Wave bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll end it on that. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'll be back on in a couple hours with Rock, and I'll be back on tomorrow for